Every morning you hit snooze for just 5 minutes. Every time you postpone a goal. Every time you make a choice you know is wrong even while you're doing it. That is where your defeat begins. The truth is, most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lack control. Control over their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions. This is the game of mental discipline. The day you master your mind is the day the world loses its power to control you. Are you the master of your mind, or still its slave? In this video, you will learn why people fail to stay disciplined, how your brain tricks you, and the powerful techniques to reprogram your mind into an unstoppable force. You'll learn how to break bad habits, destroy procrastination, and how small daily actions create a life where discipline becomes your identity. This isn't just information, it's a transformation. But it only works if you watch until the end, because each part builds on the last to make you more powerful. If you're ready to take your life to the next level, like this video and comment, "I will control my mind," to make a commitment to yourself. And if you want more life-changing content, subscribe to Bookpedia. We teach you what school never did. Now get ready, because what's coming next will change your thinking forever. Understanding the power of mental discipline. If you had to pick just one skill to master every goal in your life, what would it be? Not money, talent, or luck. The answer is mental discipline. It is the force that moves you forward when you don't feel like it. It's the focus that cuts through the noise of distraction. It is the invisible force that turns ordinary people into extraordinary ones. But here is a bitter truth. Most people don't understand discipline. They think it's about forcing yourself, suffering, or living a boring life. In reality, discipline isn't a punishment. It is the path to freedom. You've noticed it before. You start something new, like the gym or a new skill, and you're high on motivation. But after a few days, that excitement vanishes and you fall back into old patterns. Why? Because you depend on motivation, and motivation is temporary. Discipline is the system that forces you to take action regardless of your mood. That is the difference between winners and everyone else. Imagine your mind is a battlefield. On one side are your goals, success, fitness, respect. On the other side are your desires, comfort, laziness, instant pleasure. Every minute, a battle is fought. When you choose Netflix over work, or scrolling over focusing, you surrender to your desires. These small defeats eventually define your identity. You start believing, "I am not a disciplined person." But discipline is a skill that can be trained. Your brain is wired to choose the easiest path to save energy. That's why it gives you excuses like, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'm not in the mood." These are tricks to keep you in your comfort zone. If you don't recognize these tricks, you'll stay stuck. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, every time you act despite fear or laziness, you are rewiring your brain. You are teaching it that you are in control. Soon, discipline becomes a habit. Think about it. If you get just 1% better every day through one disciplined action, where will you be in a year? And if you keep making excuses, you'll be in the same place with the same regrets. The world isn't stopping you. Your mindset is. Why most people fail to stay disciplined. You know what to do, yet you still don't do it. You've read the books and watched the videos, but when it's time for action, an invisible force pulls you back. You start to doubt yourself, thinking discipline just isn't for you. But the problem isn't you, it's the system you're using. Most people fail because they mistake motivation for discipline. Motivation runs on emotions, and emotions are never stable. If your system is based on your mood, your consistency will always crumble. Your brain is programmed for short-term pleasure. When you scroll social media or eat junk food, you get an instant dopamine reward. Your brain remembers this. When you try to do something difficult, your mind pushes you toward the easy path to avoid discomfort. There is also a hidden enemy called all or nothing thinking. You think if you can't do a perfect 2-hour workout, there's no point in going at all. By chasing perfection, you ignore the power of small, consistent actions. Finally, discipline fails because you don't control your environment. Willpower is limited, but your environment has infinite influence. If your phone is buzzing every 5 minutes, or your kitchen is full of junk food, you will eventually fail. Successful people don't just use willpower, they design their environment to remove distractions so they don't have to fight themselves every day. Your behavior follows your identity. If you believe I am lazy, your actions will prove it. But if you shift your identity to I am a disciplined person, your actions will follow. You aren't failing because you're weak, you're failing because you're trying to fight your brain instead of understanding it. How to control your mind and emotions. Imagine it's 2 a.m. and your mind won't stop. Doubts, fears, and regrets are screaming so loud that the silence feels heavy. You feel powerless. But here is the breakthrough. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. Once you stop believing every thought is the truth, you gain distance. Your mind is a machine generating thousands of random, often negative thoughts. The problem is when you give them power. Think of your mind as a radio station with different channels. The fear channel, the laziness channel, the anger channel. You get to choose which one to listen to. Emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about choosing your response. When you act out of anger or avoid tasks out of fear, you are a slave. To take control, use awareness. When a strong emotion hits, pause. Ask yourself, what am I feeling and why? That small pause breaks the automatic reaction and gives you conscious control. Growth happens outside the comfort zone, but your mind will always try to pull you back in with illusions. Next time your mind tells you now isn't the right time, what will you do? Discipline starts with a decision, not an action. As you learn to observe your thoughts rather than react to them, your mind stops being your enemy and starts being your most powerful tool. The truth about willpower and self-control. Willpower is not as strong as you think. It is a limited battery that drains with every decision, stressor, and distraction you face throughout the day. This is why you are disciplined in the morning but give in to temptations by the evening. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Because willpower is finite, successful people don't rely on it. They automate their lives. They create non-negotiable rules. When a behavior is a rule, you don't have to decide to do it, you just do it. This prevents decision fatigue, where your brain gets so tired of making choices that it defaults to the easiest, most comfortable option. Willpower is temporary, but systems are permanent. If you only rely on willpower, you will lose the battle eventually. If you build a system, a fixed routine, and an environment that supports your goals, success becomes automatic. Stop fighting a daily battle and start designing a life where discipline is the default setting. Breaking bad habits and building strong ones. You decide to change, but after a few days you fall back into the same old patterns. You think you can't change, but the problem is your habits. You are defined by your daily routines, not your intentions. Every habit follows a loop. Trigger, action, reward. Boredom, trigger, leads to phone scrolling, action, which leads to a dopamine hit, reward. To change the habit, you must identify the trigger. You can't just use brute force. You need a strategy. When you feel a trigger, pause. Choose a different action. It will feel difficult at first because your brain is resisting, but every time you make the conscious choice, you rewire your neural pathways. Don't try to change everything at once. Small wins are the key. If you try to become a completely different person overnight, your brain will rebel. If you start with just 10 minutes of focus, your brain accepts it. These small wins build your confidence and shift your identity. Control your environment to make good habits easy and bad habits hard. If you want to focus, put your phone in another room. If you want to eat healthy, don't buy junk food. When your identity changes from someone trying to be disciplined to a disciplined person, your habits will follow naturally. How to beat procrastination and stay focused. The truth is, you aren't lazy. You are trapped. Procrastination is an invisible cage that destroys your plans and potential. We procrastinate because we are afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of the work, or overwhelmed by the size of the task. To beat it, you need to stop looking at the mountain and start looking at the first step. Use the 5-minute rule. Tell yourself you will only work for 5 minutes. The hardest part of any task is starting. Once you break the static friction of sitting down to work, your brain wants to keep going. Focus is a muscle. In a world full of notifications and instant gratification, your ability to focus is your greatest competitive advantage. Protect your focus like your life depends on it, because your future does. When you stop putting things off and start taking immediate action, you stop being a dreamer and start being a doer. This is where your new life begins. Discipline isn't a destination, it's a way of living. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, and now you have the power. The only question left is, will you take the first step?